To begin with, in March last year, when the pandemic started, I wasn't really sure how much I would be treating patients. I surmised that as a nephrologist, my role would be confined to doing dialysis for those patients who needed it. And my main aim was to ensure that my regular patients coming for dialysis would be able to get their dialysis without the additional risk of developing COVID. But as the cases increased, it soon became evident that every single one of us would be involved in some way in treating COVID patients. And then I had colleagues, personal friends, and others who came down, some of my staff in the unit who came down with COVID, and that really plunged us into the pandemic in a big way. Perhaps the most challenging thing was having to treat patients with COVID. I couldn't put a stethoscope to my ears because there was a hood and a helmet that we would be wearing. My hands would be covered with gloves, so the normal way of examining patients had to be altered in a big way. We were so reliant, we were so much more reliant on devices, medical devices, on investigations to give us the information that we would otherwise get very simply by examining a patient or talking to them. Even carrying out procedures with a face shield and a helmet was something that we had to relearn, redevelop our skills at this stage. And then, of course, in the second wave, it became much more intense. In the first wave, there was a slow increase in the number of cases because of the lockdown, because people were scared, because there were so many other things. But by the time the second wave came, it was really like an avalanche the way it hit everyone. And the cases went up suddenly to 8,000 in a day in Pune. That was on Easter Sunday, I remember, because I was working in the emergency department at the time. And we were hit again with a huge number of cases. The ICU beds were not enough. Fresh ICUs were set up. There was a need sometimes in an emergency to put a patient on a ventilator, even in the wards, because there were no beds available in the ICUs, and something had to be done urgently, and that's the way it was in the second. It also gave us a chance. By this time, we had a much better idea, though there's still a lot we don't know about COVID. We at least had a better idea of what to look for, how to treat the patients in a more scientific way than we had at the same time last year. So that was an advantage for us. And by this time also, the system was a well-oiled system. And that's why one cannot forget that it wasn't each of us who was doing our bit. We cannot forget that there were lab technicians, biomedical engineers, paramedics, and so many others, the police, the civic authorities, so many others who were all doing their bit at the same time. Administrators of our hospital who were continuously up very often till 2 or 3 a.m. at night handling crisis. And each person was doing their bit in this. Each of us, and while we were going through all this, there was always the knowledge that there were others who were going through so much more, in our own city, in certain other hospitals, as well as in various other places in the country and across the world, each doing their bit, each of them a drop in the ocean. And now that the second wave appears to have waned and all of us are a bit more relaxed, we cannot afford to relax completely. We have got to learn to live with the fact that COVID is with us. We hear so much about the Delta Plus variant. Although we are now vaccinating, there isn't a complete confidence that we will not face a third wave, or if not a wave, another small spike in the number of cases. And that is why it's important for us all to get vaccinated as quickly as possible, and at the same time to continue to wear masks in public and to maintain the social distancing norms and stay safe.